Okay. Should be alright. Well, get into some more He Who Fights with Monsters today. I just gotta remember exactly where I left off. Oh shit. I knew this was gonna make a bunch of noise. Why is it making so much noise? Yeah, maybe that's why. But anyway, I just gotta finish. I gotta remember where I left off at from the last chapter. 35 it was. So let's see where we are at. Blah 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 blah. Cause I know last chapter we left off, it was where was it at? It was he ended up getting his ass beat by some people that was trying to send a message. So that was chapter 35. So let's see if I can get where I was.
Jason watched in horror as its body started climbing up and around the outside of the well like the thread of a screw. Despite the wet and slippery surface of the well, the snake started winding its way up as it adhered to the sides. Jason resumed his some 25 meters across and at least twice as high.
I have no idea.
It was enough to boggle Jason's mind, even through his punch-drunk haze. The walls were black, like some long The climate bore no resemblance to the moderate warmth and lush greenery he had experienced in the hedge maze. Even the heat had felt different there, more pleasant. At least, I did, until they were taken from me. We'll get our equipment back after we've freed Anissa. Before sending away the stone chest, Farah took out 2 belts with heavy pouches. One was grey, which she handed to Gary, the other red, which she kept for herself. What are those? Jason asked. He watched Farah look.
I wish that I actually knew exactly where I was at. I'm fucking.
That's a rare charm.
Let's see. This might take me a second to figure out where I was.
Just remember that every choice has its consequences, even if you choose to do nothing. Rufus looked over at Jason, then back out at the night sky. I was a kid, Gary said, right into a pot of soup. My dad said that's why They told him about a city on the coast, the only city in the entire desert region. All right, Jason said, sitting up. I think I'm good to go again. He sat cross-legged on the...
This is so dumb. God damn, I wish I knew exactly where I was at. Let's see. Let's see. Shit. This is...
You can rely on your dagger for an extra source of afflictions until you've awakened all your powers, Gary said. Speaking of which, Rufus said, you have 2 more awakening stones to get through before we leave. Jason nodded, picking up the... This is the main distribution point for all the green marble in this region, Farah explained. There are villages like the one we stayed in all through the region. From here it all gets taken south and shipped downriver on barges. So long as the money kept flowing, the Big Three were free to divide Old City between them. The fortress was neutral ground. It was the one place where the Big Three shared operations, dividing both responsibility and profit.
I'm getting close.
It's been an odd couple of weeks, Jason said. I'm picking things up as I go. Can we please get started? The man from the Adventure Society asked impatiently. Yes, sorry, Gabrielle said. She held up the crystal orb in front of Jason. She frowned at it, giving it a small shake. Miss Pelham? Russell prompted. It seems Mr. Asano is impervious to the aura reader, Gabrielle said. Physical training, I'll be working on your combat skills, and Farah will help you with mental training and meditation. It's important? Very. Anyone who hits bronze rank and can't manage their aura is a second-rate adventurer, and you can't do that without an aura ability. Well...
Okay, I really can't find out where I'm at. This is so dumb. So let me go back to the old... Let me go back to the old site that I was on. And then I should be able to go off of that instead. Let's go to this. Okay. Alright, so this for sure I should know, because I know it was I ended chapter 35 it was. So this should be This should be good.
Chapter 35. Greenstone.
So I'm on chapter 36.
Chapter 36.
Okay, chapter 36.
The Island. Jason regained consciousness on a cushion table, like an examination table in a doctor's office. He'd been stripped down to his boxer shorts, and his skin was covered in healing unguent. I think I'm weirdly getting used to this. To getting knocked out? Jory asked. He was at a sink, washing out empty potion vials and placing them on a drying rack. It's been a rough couple of weeks, Jason said. 2 acolytes of the God of Healing beating someone unconscious, though, Jory said. That's unusual.
Wait,
Not for me, Jason said.
this is where I was just at. I was just at when he said it's been a rough couple of weeks. Let me see. I was just there when he said that it's been a rough couple of weeks.
Oh, we can't have that, Jason said. The stone... It's a good cleansing ability, Gary observed. A little seriously, Rufus asked. I'm about to learn magic kung fu, so probably not, asked impatiently. Yes, sorry, Gabrielle said. She held up the crystal orb in front of Jason.
Huh.
I can imagine. Haven't you seen it for yourself? You would have been, what, 10, 12, when the last surge hit? They don't have monster surges where I come from. Still getting kicks in. Come on, the other one said. We came to send a message, and a message is sent.
Yeah, that's where I'm
The
at.
painted man gave Jason a final kick,
Okay,
picked
cool.
up the other pot of paint, and Jason regained consciousness on a cushion table,
All right,
like
cool.
an examination table in a doctor's
Cool.
office.
We're in the right spot.
He'd been stripped down to his boxer shorts, and his skin was covered in healing unguent. I think I'm weirdly getting used to this. To getting knocked out? Jory asked. He was at a sink, washing out empty potion vials and placing them on a drying rack. It's been a rough couple of weeks, Jason said.
So he just got his ass beat. And it looked like he got beat on purpose for some reason. But now he's waking up and Jury is talking to him.
2 acolytes of the God of Healing beating someone unconscious, though, Jory said. That's unusual. Not for me, Jason said. It's mostly been cultists, but generally religious figures of one stripe or another. Jason groaned as he shoved his legs off the table, pushing himself up to a sitting position. He looked around what he assumed was the inside of Jory's clinic, which was surprisingly similar to a medical exam room from his own world. Tiles and cabinets, clean white surfaces. There was a plain chair next to the exam table, with his clothes folded neatly on it, along with a towel. Is that for me? He asked. I put the ointment on you, Jory said. You can wipe it off yourself. You know, goading those 2 into kicking the snot out of you was the single dumbest thing I've ever seen. But what really impressed me was that you immediately topped it by standing up and doing it again. They weren't mucking about that second time either. The one you dumped paint on kicked you square in the head. I don't remember that, Jason said. It was kind of a passing shot as they left, Jory said. I think you were already out. Harsh, Jason said. I've been knocked out a lot this last week. I believe you,
Yeah.
Jory told him.
For sure.
You owe me for the healing potion I tipped down your throat, by the way. And 2 tins of healing ointment I used for the bruising. No worries, Jason said. That's actually why it wasn't a stupid thing to do. Jory placed the last potion vial on a drying rack. This I want to hear, he said, turning around to face Jason. Well, if someone beats you up, there's healing potions, Jason said. If you have the money, Jory said. Valid point, Jason acknowledged. But in my case, I do, which means I can take a beating and the repercussions don't last so long. I don't know about the rest of it, Jory said, but I will admit you can take a beating. If you stay quiet when you wished you'd said something, Jason said, that regret builds up, starts eating you from the inside, and there's no potion for that. Sure there is, Jory said. It's called liquor. Another alchemist friend of mine has a distillery not too far from here. That's not a cure, Jason said. That's setting yourself on fire to ward off the cold. I'm not sure you're the guy I'm going to for advice about consequences, Jory said. Probably for the best, Jason said with a laugh. Are you going to catch any blowback because I took those blokes on? It'll be fine, Jory said. I'm a member of the Adventure Society and the Alchemist Association. They're only low-level acolytes making trouble, so there's only so far they'll take things. If you'd actually given them a beating instead of the other way around, though, their higher-ups might have gotten involved. I don't have the influence to push back against that. I'm just glad you weren't stupid enough to use your essence abilities. I figured it was bar fight rules, Jason said. It's all fun and games until someone pulls a knife. I've never been in a bar fight. Me either, Jason admitted. I just heard that somewhere. Jory shook his
He
head.
didn't know that stuff
You're
just
a crazy person.
from TV shows.
The odds are pretty good, yeah. Luckily, they got to stomp you into the ground, which should make them feel like they've accomplished something. Hopefully, they won't be back for a while. That's why you didn't step in to help me? Help you? I almost stepped in to help them. Jason chuckled. Lovely. Those two both had Iron Rank auras. Were they part of the Adventure Society? Maybe, Jory said. The Adventure Society doesn't put restrictions against membership in any other legitimate organization. Religions count as legitimate? What is wrong with your head? The bit on the front is too handsome, Jason said. I don't suppose you could point me in the direction of the Adventure Society? I came here to sign up, after all. Jason wandered through the streets of Old City, stopping every now and again to buy something from a street stall. Food, Jittle Kebab, has inflicted food poisoning on you. You have resisted food poisoning.
He got food poisoning?
Does not take effect.
That's crazy.
You have gained an instance of resistant. Food poisoning? Combat log. You have been inflicted with normal rank poison, food poisoning. Iron rank gives you increased resistance to normal rank afflictions. Ability Sin Eater gives you increased resistance to all afflictions. You have resisted food poisoning. Resisting an affliction has triggered ability Sin Eater, granting you an instance of resistant. Sin Eater? I'm really starting to like this ability. Jason looked at the food in his hand, then at the resistant buff icon, then back at the kebab. You are pretty tasty.
So he gonna just keep eating
His
it?
gaze drifted back to the resistant buff. Why not? It's kind of like training the power.
I mean,
He
basically,
bit into the kebab again. Special attack, Chiffle Kebab, has inflicted food poisoning on you.
Special
you have
attack.
resisted food poisoning. Food poisoning does not take effect.
kebab has a
You have gained
special
an instance
attack.
of resistant.
that's funny.
There was now the number 2 next to his resistance buff indicator. Loving this power. Eventually, he passed through a busy warehouse district that gave way to the city ports, and he caught sight of the water. After the desolation of the desert, even the dark green lushness of the delta didn't compare to a grand stretch of cerulean. It was not the open sea, however, as there was a far shore some 2 kilometers distant, making it seem more like a lake. The ports were a bustle of activity, forcing him to step carefully or get run down by a wagon. He finally reached a bridge that reached up and over the water in a gentle arc. Constructed entirely from green marble, it exuded wealth compared to the sandy yellow stone of Old City. There were 3 lanes across the bridge, managed by an inspection point with armed guards, high metal gates, and a large guard station. These guards wore the same uniform as the ones at the city gate, but he could see at a glance these were more fastidious in their duties. There were 8 of them, and Jason could feel from their auras that some had essences. Only one had a full set of essences, the one who looked to be in charge. Passage to the island was clearly more regimented than that to Old City. Of the 3 lanes, the 2 smaller ones were for goods and service transport to and from the island. They were intensely busy, with rigorous inspections slowing progress. The wider 3rd lane was for a privileged class with space to spare. Most of the traffic was wealthy-looking carriages, which caught Jason's attention by not being drawn by animals. Their wheels had the glow of engraved magical symbols. Jory had been kind enough to explain the basics to Jason. Travel to the island was restricted without a valid reason for entry. Trade and work permits would get someone into the trade lanes. Aristocrats, adventurers, and residents were free to come and go using the wide lane. Members of the various guilds, societies, and associations headquartered on the island were likewise free to enter. Anyone else with valid business on the island could buy a permit for entry for 1 day's entry, daylight hours only. What constituted valid business was at the discretion of the guards, who were town constables under the city's ruler, Duke Greenstone. A day's entry to the island cost an Iron Rank spirit coin. Fortunately, anyone willing to pay up had access to the privilege lane. Jason had been around enough to get a handle on the currency, of which the lesser spirit coin was the basic unit. It was a full 100 lesser coins to 1 Iron Rank coin. After which, denominations went up in multiples of 10.
100?
It was 10 iron to the bronze, 10 bronze to the silver, and so on, all the way up to diamond.
Wait,
The gold rank
what?
coins in Jason's possession were each worth 100 that coin. After which, denominations went up in multiples of 10. It was 10 iron to the bronze, 10 bronze to the silver, and so
Wait, so
on.
it's so 100 lesser coins equals 1 iron coin, and then I'm guessing 10 iron coins equals 1 bronze coin, then 10 bronze coins equals 1 silver, 10 silver equals 1 gold. Okay, so it's just adding the 0. Okay, I got it.
So on, all the way up to diamond. The gold rank coins in Jason's possession were each worth 100,000 lesser coins.
Wow.
At the entry gate, Jason didn't have to queue for long. There were long lines for the trade lane, where every person and vehicle was thoroughly checked. In the privileged lane, most of the carriages were waved straight through, while others went through after simply showing a permit. Most of the people in front of Jason were given permits after a short chat with the guard and handing over a coin. Jason noticed each person needing to touch their thumb to a stone the guard took from his pocket. The bored, but still diligent guard looked Jason up and down. "Reason for permit application? Applying to the Adventure Society," Jason said. The constable looked Jason over again, then nodded. "Wait here." He went to exchange a quiet word with the one Jason pegged as being in charge. That man looked Jason over and gave a brief nod to the guard, who came back. "Looks like you're all good. Just hand over your coin and put your thumb on the tracking stone." "Tracking stone?" Jason asked. The guard raised a suspicious eyebrow. "You don't know what a tracking stone is?"
You can't be tracked.
The officer in charge wandered over. "Is there a problem?" "This guy doesn't know what a tracking stone is,"
Is there a
the
problem?
gun said. "Where are you from?" the officer asked Jason. "Castleton Beach, originally," Jason said. "It's a small town, a long way from any real magic. Melbourne the last couple of years, but I
Bruh.
doubt you've heard of it. I've come a long way, and there's still a lot I don't know."
Bro, why is he talking to them about fucking where he was at on Earth? Like, he's not on Earth anymore. They're not gonna know what the hell he's talking about.
The officer looked Jason over for a few moments, then fished a stone from his pocket. The palm-sized glassy object looked similar to an awakening stone, except faceted instead of smooth. It had a dark blue-green coloration. "This is a tracking stone," the officer said. "This lets us find you wherever you are on the island." Jason had an ability that prevented him from being tracked. He couldn't be sure if that would have an effect on the stone, and he decided to not mention it. "If you make us come looking," the guard continued, "it won't be us coming for you, understand?" "It'll be someone much worse," Jason said. "Smart," the officer said. "Smart is good." "I think your bar for smart might be a little low," Jason said. "Too smart is maybe not so good," the officer said. "If you want to stay on the island past sunset, find lodgings. That'll qualify you for a temporary residence permit. Find good lodgings and they'll register it for you instead of making you come back and do it yourself." "Thanks," Jason said. He handed over his coin and pressed his thumb to the stone. Either the stone was stronger than his ability, or the stone gave no warning that it couldn't track him.
I would ask if the audio is good, but I'm guessing it is pretty good since I haven't gotten any complaints. So I'm guessing my audio is fine.
Shortly after, Jason was through the gate and walking across the bridge. The main thoroughfare was for carriages, with those on foot like Jason following a path at the edge of the bridge. That was fine by Jason. The rising arc of the bridge gave him an increasingly good view of the city. Back the way he had come was the yellow sprawl of Old City. Below the bridge, the sun reflected off the deep blue water, busy with water traffic. The Old City shoreline was a massive port, the full length of the city. The ships were large, crammed into docks that seemed strangely high. He wondered if that was something to do with what two moons did to the tides. There were 3 other bridges like the one Jason was on. Engineering marvels that spanned kilometers of water. They were the equal of anything from his own world. Ahead was the island, seeming opulent even at a distance. Compared to the clustered Old City, it indulged in the luxury of space. Where the Old City ports were occupied with large trade ships, the island's widely spaced marinas were occupied entirely by what looked like pleasure craft. Many of them didn't have sails, presumably being propelled by magic. The marina buildings all looked like yacht clubs, and beyond that were large houses with expansive grounds. Trees and grass abounded, and the streets he could see were wide and sealed. The buildings were all combinations of green marble and variously colored tiles. Eagerly heading along the bridge, Jason got a better look at the wide boulevard at the end of the bridge. Colorful plant beds separated carriageways and footpaths. Trees lined the streets, shading them with a leafy canopy. The inspection station at the end of the bridge was just a small booth with no gates. The security was fastidious with those entering the island, but disinterested in those leaving. The security guard looked a lot more relaxed, in his middle years, with thinning hair and a paunch his uniform did not flatter. He came out of the booth, giving Jason a friendly smile as he checked his permit. Although the guard looked casual, he took his time to check the permit thoroughly. As he did, Jason took a deep, satisfying breath. The air was clean and fresh, without the wet mugginess of the delta, the dry aridity of the desert, or the crowded scents battling it out in Old City. "I think I'm going to enjoy wealth inequality." Chapter 37. A good adventurer and a great one.
Okay.
After leaving the walls of the city on the back of a Heidel, Rufus rode at a casual pace along the embankment roads that divided up the delta. They were busy with traffic, mostly carts and wagons shuttling back and forth from the city. He could have urged his mount to move faster, but instead enjoyed a leisurely ride that took him to the gates of the Geller family estate. A thick, high wall marked the boundary, spanning off in both directions. The estate beyond was so vast that monsters were as likely to manifest inside the walls as out. He approached the open gate and was let in by a pair of guards who took his mount. Rufus could sense the iron rank auras of both men. That might have been normal in his home city, but locally was the exception. To his knowledge, only the Duke of Greenstone's household guard used iron rank essence users for basic troops. Knowing the Geller family, he expected these guards were family members on some kind of punishment detail, or being taught the value of diligence. At the guard's direction, he started walking up the wide, gravel-covered thoroughfare. The main house could be seen in the distance, a series of low buildings whose design seemed more interested in fitting the surroundings than lording over them. Rufus nodded to himself, finding it very much to his taste. The grounds on both sides of the central approach were bursting with life. Palm trees, tall shrubbery, and bamboo stands. Paths disappeared through vine-covered archways and behind flowering bushes. The promise of canopy shade and the sound of trickling water enticed strollers to explore. Rufus continued up the central path towards the manor house. Moving closer, he saw the low buildings were interconnected, with open walkways of wood, stone, and bamboo. As he arrived in front of the foremost building, someone emerged to meet him. A beautiful woman with dark olive skin and black hair.
Okay.
She looked around 30, which Rufus knew to be 20 years shy of the reality. The age-defying power of her silver rank essences kept her looks just as they were when he had first met her as a boy. Lady Geller, Rufus greeted.
Silver rank.
Little Rufus Remor, Danielle said with a smile. I didn't think you would still be so adorable. Rufus cleared his throat awkwardly, and Danielle laughed. You know, Mr. Remor, she said, many of our family's young ladies are arriving ahead of the monster surge. Perhaps if I set up a little soiree. Thank you, Lady Geller, but I have quite enough to be going on with, without romantic entanglements complicating my affairs. Oh, the young men would be there too. Gracious, he said, but my answer remains the same. Such a shame.
So what, bisexual?
I'd like to compliment you on your home, Rufus said. It makes one want to wander off and explore. Then shall we? Danielle asked, with an inviting gesture. I imagine we can discuss the reason for your visit just
But that's smart, though. I will say that's smart. You want to stay focused, right? Stay focused. Let no romantic entanglements get in the way of your purpose, your goal, what you're trying to accomplish. So Rufus got his head on straight.
The gardens. I would very much like that, Rufus said. Danielle picked a path under an archway overgrown with flowering vines, leading him deeper into the grounds. Rufus soon discovered them to be every part the equal of their promise. Your estate grounds truly are a joy to experience, Rufus said. Thank you. My family came here as the region was first being settled. The walls of our estate are older than the walls of Old City. Last I heard, we even have a member of that generation still around somewhere. Oh? She reached diamond rank a couple of centuries ago. Not so good at keeping in touch, though. You know what diamond rankers are like. Agelessness engenders an unusual perspective, I imagine, Rufus said. Danielle smiled. Let us hope we both go far enough to see for ourselves, she said. What brings you out here today, Mr.
Diamond
Lamar?
rank.
Seeing the ancestral home of the Geller family isn't reason enough, Rufus asked. I'm a little surprised to find you in residence. We call most of our bronze and silver rankers home when a monster surge is imminent, Danielle said. The family has placed me in charge of defending the estate this time, and my husband and daughter will be back sometime in the next few months. Really, though, I'm back to overlook my son's final training. You really train all of your family members here? Rufus asked. We do, Danielle said. Our facilities might not be the Remor Academy, but we're proud of it nonetheless. And rightly so, by all accounts, Rufus said. I have heard my grandfather express his respect on more than one occasion. High praise indeed, Danielle said. If I may ask, Rufus said, why here? I know this is where your family first rose up as a power, but now you're established in major cities around the world. Why send people born in high magic areas to train here? We send everyone to train here, she said. Those high magic areas are just the problem. Before you came here, did you ever go out on an expedition without at least a silver ranker to watch your back? No, Rufus said, darkly, which led to a recent mistake on my part. Overconfidence led to insufficient caution. It almost cost my people everything. That is precisely the reason we still use this place, Danielle said. The low magical density makes monsters weaker, the danger smaller, the consequences less severe. Not to say there aren't real dangers, but we can send out our iron rankers to face them alone. No one to rely on but themselves and each other. You let them make their mistakes when those mistakes are less likely to kill them, Rufus said. Exactly.
Sounds smart.
In light of my own hard-earned lesson, Rufus said, I cannot see that as anything but an excellent practice. There may be a lesson for the way my own family does things. That's very flattering, Daniel said. You really are a Remor, aren't you? You're all obsessed with improving your academy's training methods. Speaking of training, Rufus said, that is the reason I've come today. I've heard that your family's training facility includes a Mirage chamber. I was hoping to borrow it from time to time during my stay here. Danielle gave him an apologetic smile. Indeed, we do have one, she said. Sadly, as much as I would like to accommodate you, I cannot. As I mentioned, the local magical density is quite low. We can only operate our Mirage chamber at a bronze rank level for limited periods, and I can't take that valuable training time away from my own family. Actually, it isn't for me, Rufus said. I've found a person in rather desperate need of training, and have taken it upon myself to give him a rush course. She gave him a sideways glance, eyebrows arched. From what I hear, she said, every aristocratic family in Greenstone has been asking you to guide their young hopefuls, including ours. I have to wonder how someone managed to catch your eye. Rufus let out a self-deprecating laugh. I mentioned my mistake, he said. It would have gotten me killed, if not for a rather unusual man. Rufus shook his head. I grew up surrounded by adventurers. I was raised not just to be one of them, but to be so good I could teach others. Everyone around me, as long as I can remember, told me I was going to be a great adventurer. It got to the point that I never even doubted it. The only exception was my grandfather. He said you never learn who you are when everything goes right. It's in your darkest hour that you understand what it is to be an adventurer. They stopped walking at the edge of a pond, Rufus looking down at his own reflection. In my darkest hour, Rufus continued, I met a man who had never even heard of the Adventure Society. One essence, no combat abilities. He didn't even know how to use spirit coins. But when all seemed lost, he showed me, like my grandfather said, what it means to be an adventurer. When all your training and powers fail you, you have to find something inside yourself you never knew was there. Then you can do things you never thought possible. It's the difference between a good adventurer and a great one.
So I'm guessing this is the separation that I guess Jason is going to have compared to the rest of the adventurers. Because when you got a story, you got to have the main character. Like, most stories, the main character is what's going to lead the entire story, right? So the main character has to be somebody that separates themselves from somebody else. Now, I know a lot of stories, they do things where they just be like, oh, okay, the main character is just like super OP, can solve any problem, and only the toughest of the toughest people give him a challenge. But then he overcomes that person and becomes even stronger, and it's just kind of like a repetitive cycle or whatever. And then it gets to the point where, like, he's so much stronger than everybody else that the only real consequence you could see happening would be somebody that he loves or he cares about might be in danger. And so that's kind of the risk. Like, oh, maybe this person might die, because you're not worried about him dying because he's so goddamn strong. But maybe this other person might die. So it seems to me like this is what Jason is pretty much in Rufus's eyes. What he's amounted to is just like, okay, he's that person who's got that it factor. He's got that thing that might lead him to get to diamond rank, you know. But my question is just like, how long will it actually take to get to diamond rank? Because I mean they talk about how it took centuries for this one chick to go to diamond rank. This Danielle, whatever what she says. So if it takes that long, like, how long is this story really going to be, and how fast is Jason going to, like, go up the levels?
Valuable lesson, Danielle said. It seems your time here wasn't wasted. It hasn't been, Rufus said. Having received such a valuable lesson, I want to impart what I know in turn. Well, Danielle said, if what you are looking for is some time in our Mirage chamber running at iron rank, I can accommodate you. I would appreciate a little reciprocity, however. Oh? I mentioned my son and his final training. The time has come for him to join the Adventure Society, and I'd like you to do his field assessment. I'm sure the Society would be happy to accommodate. I won't show your boy any favoritism, if that's what you're looking for, Rufus said. Danielle laughed. Oh, I'd hardly need you for that, she said. You're not suggesting the Adventure Society is subject to corruption? Rufus asked. You have to realize, Mr. Remor, this isn't Vitesse. The Adventure Society is a major force in Greenstone, but the isolation means the local branch is more reliant on local powers. Compromises must be made. Dark clouds appeared in Rufus's expression. The neutrality of the Adventure Society is one of its central tenets, he said. I agree, Daniel said. However, if the core branches want to export their values to remote branches like Greenstone, they need to export sufficient resources along with them. Ideals are well and good in the heart of a kingdom, Mr. Amor, but here we are more often overlooked than not. In the provinces, we all have to deal with the realities. Rufus looked rather dumbstruck. I'm not sure what to say to that. There's nothing to be said. Welcome to the wilderness. Surely it can't be that bad. Oh, it's not, Daniel said. Especially with the new branch director. She worked her way up from the bottom, so she knows what it is to fight through the influence of families like mine. Remarkable woman, actually, but there is no getting around the fact that the Adventure Society here is reliant on local powers. Is that why the adventurer standards are so low here? Rufus asked. That's precisely the reason, Daniel said. Exceptions have a way of being made for those whose capabilities are not the equal of their connections. Eventually, standards just declined in general. That is why I want my son assessed to your standards. He doesn't need help. He needs to be challenged. Then I would be happy to assist you, Rufus said. Challenge I can do.
All right.
Jason was standing at the edge of the bridge, having just arrived on the island. The security guard handed back his permit after checking it. Everything's in order, sir, the man said. First time on the island? It is, Jason said. I don't suppose you could point out the quickest way to the Adventure Society? The guard gestured down the boulevard that followed straight out from the bridge. Head up this way and you'll find the transit terminal. Big building, you can't miss it. That'll get you where you need to go. Thanks, mate. Jason started walking up the street, past houses with gardens and grounds secured behind green brick walls and artfully wrought metal gates. Transit terminal, Jason muttered to himself as he walked along the street. Do they have magic trams or something? Soon Jason came to some kind of local shopping district, dominated by eateries and boutique stores. Jason wanted to stop and chase some of the enticing smells, but it was already afternoon. First, he needed to find the Adventure Society, then somewhere to stay before sundown so he could stay on the island. The shopping area was dominated by a large building with a sign declaring it the North Marina Transit Terminal. He went inside, finding it to be set out like a train station. He found a large sign that showed the routes, a pair of loop lines going in opposite directions. According to the map, Jason could reach the Adventure Society from Platform B. There didn't seem to be any place to buy tickets, so Jason took the stairwell marked for Platform B, descending to a below-ground level. The stairwell was long, around 2 stories worth of switchback stairs before coming out on a platform. It immediately reminded him of a subway platform in layout. The floor, walls, and ceiling were combinations of greenstone and power mosaic, with cool, clean light coming...
This is a very slow story, you know? It's very slow because it's just like... I get why, though, because they're trying to, like, really explain to you everything that's going on with the Magic Society and the Adventure Society and the world and all the society stuff. So I get why it's so slow, but I don't know. A lot of this stuff just kind of seems just like I kind of just want to get into the action, you know, maybe learning more about power systems, getting some new abilities or something, but slow and steady wins the race, right?
Light coming from magical stones fixed into the ceiling. There were benches around the walls with people sitting patiently, while others stood. The difference from a subway station was that in front of the tunnel was a glass wall, with water behind it, like an aquarium. 3 circular metal frames in the glass wall had doors that looked like airlocks. Moving closer to take a look, he saw the tunnel extended beyond both sides of the platform, like a subway tunnel. On the other side of the tunnel, he could see another glass wall with the same 3 doors, with another platform beyond that. The lights illuminating the platform started dimming in a gentle strobe. It was apparently some kind of signal. The other people at the platform started getting up from benches and moving towards the glass wall. Shortly thereafter, a bullet-shaped capsule floated down the tunnel and affixed itself to the wall with clamps that gripped the 3 metal circles and pressed tightly into the doors. With a hiss of air, the doors slid open and people came out. The people on the platform then boarded, Jason among them.
So it's like
the interior
like
of the
a bullet
capsule was
train.
more like a bus than a subway car, with pairs of seats on each side.
Or a
The
bullet-
seats were soft
a
and
bullet
plush,
bus?
more like a luxury coach than cheap public transport. Jason found a window seat and watched the tunnel go past as the capsule took off. The ride had a floaty feel to it, and Jason couldn't stop himself from grinning like an idiot. Submarine subways, he murmured to himself, shaking his head in disbelief. I love magical cities. The tunnel outside his window was decorated in tile mosaic and lit with different colored lights. It seemed to be telling some kind of myth, with monsters and heroes locked in epic battle. He became so engrossed in the images going past that he was disappointed to arrive at his destination. The Adventure Society Terminal was 2 stops from where he started, and was one of several buildings in the extensive Adventure Society campus. Jason followed a sign labeled Administration out of the building onto what looked like a prestigious old university, all stone buildings and sprawling grounds. Jason took what he guessed was the right path, and only had to ask directions once before finding the administration building. He found himself in a large lobby appointed in wood, everywhere from the various sets of double doors to the 3 separate stairways. In terms of construction materials, Jason had seen plenty of mud brick, stone, tile, bamboo, even reeds. The sudden preponderance of wood was a sufficiently stark contrast to make clear the importance of the building. It was a vast space, which fortunately contained what looked like a reception desk, at which Jason presented himself. Behind the desk was what looked like the same paunchy, balding bridge guard who had given him directions. Only the clothes were different, the guard uniform replaced with a more civilian-looking outfit. It had a prominently stitched emblem of a sword and rod crossed over a shield. Jason had seen that emblem several times since arriving, recognizing it from Rufus's Adventure Society badge. The uniform had a loose fit Jason had seen on most of the locals, although the man's hefty midsection rather minimized the looseness. Jason noted there was a pencil tucked atop one of the man's ears. "Do you have a brother?" Jason asked. "Just come over the bridge, sir." "I did." "That was my brother Bertram, sir. I'm Albert, but feel free to just call me Bert." "No worries, Bert. Is this where I apply to join the Adventure Society?" "Certainly is, sir," Albert said brightly. "I can get you started right away if you like." "That'd be great." He pulled out a form and sat it on the desk, then started fishing through drawers. "Not looking for a pencil, are you?" Jason asked. "I am, sir. Had it around here somewhere." Jason tapped his own ear, and a look of grateful revelation came over Albert's face as he plucked the pencil from its resting spot. "Thank you, sir," Albert said. "How about we start with a name?" "Jason Asano." Instead of writing it down, Albert gave Jason a curious look.
Asano.
"Do you know an adventurer named Gareth Zandia?" "Gareth Zandia?" Jason asked. "Wait, do you mean Gary? Big, Leonid bloke?" "Yes," Albert said. "The good-looking one?" "I knew it," Jason said, shaking his head in disgust. "I'm sorry?" Albert asked. "Never mind," Jason said. "Why do you ask about Gary?" "He's been coming in and asking after you for the last couple of days," Albert said. "Is it all right to tell him you've registered?" "Sure," Jason said, "although I'd rather tell him myself. Do you know where he's staying?" Chapter 38.
38.
Just another adventurer.
38.
The Guild District was the region of the island that contained the Adventure Society campus, along with many other guilds and societies. Occupying the northwest region of the island, the Guild District also contained the bulk of the island's visitor accommodations. Staying on the island was a relatively expensive prospect, but with price came quality. Rufus, Farah, and Gary had secured a 3-room suite in Sailor's Watch, an inn at the very edge of the island with exceptional ocean views. Having returned from the Geller estate, Rufus ran into Farah outside their lodgings as she returned from her own business. "How did it go?" Farah asked. "Well enough," Rufus said. "Now we just need Jason to finally arrive." Farah sniffed at the smell of fresh baking wafting out of the inn. "Smells good," she said. "Should be just about time to get some supper." "It should," Rufus agreed, and they went inside. Walking in, they headed in the direction of the dining room. There was a doorway leading directly to the kitchen, from which they heard a familiar voice. "Now, it's equal parts sugar and water, then flavor to discretion. And I do mean discretion. You don't want the flavor of the syrup to overpower the cake. Once the syrup is soaking in, there's no getting it back out again. Unless you can extricate the syrup with magic somehow. I need to get my hands on a cooking magic skill book."
Jason, bro.
Farah snickered at the exasperation suddenly on Rufus's face. "Jason?" Rufus called out. "Rufus! Excuse me for a moment, ladies." Jason wandered out of the kitchen, wearing an apron marked with flour. "G'day," he greeted them. "Nice little place you found. A bit exy, but I picked up a decent bit of coin during our misadventures at the Vane Estate. Fighting cannibals is lucrative. I forgot to loot that woman, Cressida, though. Probably missed out on a good bit of coin there." "I still have your share from looting the manor," Farah said. "They filched all the really good stuff before running off, but they left enough behind to be worth splitting up." "Oh, nice," Jason said. "What took you so long?" Rufus asked. "I took the scenic route through the Delta. Jason said. I had a good time. There was some talk about someone roaming around healing people, Farah said. Did you hear about that? How did you hear about it? Jason asked. What we heard was that he was doing it for free, Farah said. The Church of the Healer wasn't happy. Did you see the guy? Jason looked about shiftily. Yeah. Seriously? Rufus asked. It was you? I have that cleansing power, Jason said. What happened to splitting up to prevent drawing attention? Rufus asked. What did you want me to say? Sorry, miss, but while it may seem that healing your father's horrifying illness would cost me nothing, someone might notice. Surely there's a middle ground between doing nothing and walking the earth healing the sick and lame.
If you got
Rufus
it,
said.
why not do it?
And where do I draw the line?
Shit.
Jason asked. Should it be where people aren't sick enough, or where they aren't impoverished enough? He does have a point, Farah said. Who looks at the poor and sick and tells them they aren't poor and sick enough? The Church of the Healer, from what I've heard. Jason said darkly. I've seen this kind of thing before, Farah said. The Healer likes to give his worshippers the freedom to make the right choices on their own. The Church of the Healer is really important in isolated areas like this, though, and more than one church leader has been known to go a bit power mad. The God's real, right? Jason asked. Doesn't he step in? I've heard they do, if they take it too far, Rufus said. You always hear stories about churches who lose their way. I've never seen it reach the stage where their God intervenes. I have, Farah said. Rufus is a big city boy, but it normally happens places like this, where there's less to keep them in check. Did you at least go to the Adventure Society before getting to the kitchen? Rufus asked Jason. Yeah, I did the paperwork, Jason said. I have some kind of assessment tomorrow. That's just to clear you of things like restricted essences, Farah said. Once that's done, you'll need to go through a field assessment, Rufus said, which they do at the start of each month. The next one is in 9 days, but you can take yours the following month. What's wrong with this month? Jason asked. You won't be ready this month, Rufus said. Training you up to an acceptable standard by the end of next month will be rushed enough. 9 days from now, you wouldn't come close to passing. You don't know for sure, Jason said. I'm administering the field assessment myself, Rufus said, so I can speak with an amount of confidence. You're doing it? Jason said. Fair enough then. Having you assess me wouldn't exactly be ethical. Conflict of interest and all that. Well, I'll see you at dinner. I have to get back to my cake. Rufus and Farah watched Jason retreat into the kitchen. He thinks he'd failed because of ethics? Farah asked. He'll figure it out once the training starts, Rufus said. The Guild District was different from the North Marina District in which Jason had first arrived on the island. Rather than large private residences, it was occupied by various organizations, with smaller permanent residences serving the people that worked for them. Other than that, there was a large number of storefronts that seemed to be extensions of the various societies and associations headquartered around them. 2 sprawling campuses dominated the Guild District. One was the Adventure Society, and the other was an organization called the Magic Society. Jason knew Farah was...
You just started book 6. What do you think? What do you think? I mean, so if you're in book 6 already, so what do you think about the story so far, Joshua? I'm wondering what you're thinking, because I mean, I think it's, I don't know. So far I think it's good. I think it's good, but not, you know, because I read also, you know, Tibet and stuff, and it's just like, I mean, it's still got to get further into it, but it's just like, I don't know. I think it's good so far though.
Farah was a member, but only had a vague idea of what they did. From what he could gather, they were something between a magic university and a magic utility company. Judging by size and centrality, the Forge Society and the Alchemist Association were clearly second to the Adventure and Magic Societies, but still occupied impressive chunks of real estate. Other organizations in the district ranged from occupying large buildings to being clustered into one space with other groups. Some were trade organizations, while others were adventuring guilds, private organizations of adventurers banded together for varying purposes. Rufus had warned...
You said it scales good? Talking about as far as like the story goes? Because, yeah, I've been kind of reading, and I don't know. I really wanted to kind of reread like some of the early parts to kind of get like a better feel of just like some of the details you might miss when you're like reading through a story really fast. So I don't know, but I think it's good though. I think it's good too. I think it's good. I mean, I don't think it's anything like crazy, spectacular, incredible, but I think like it's good, you know? Like, yeah, probably like an 8 out of 10.
Warned Jason against joining any of the local adventuring guilds. According to Rufus, they were all small-time affairs that took more from their members than they offered, although Jason wasn't entirely convinced. He'd learned enough about Rufus's background to realize Rufus looked down from a very great height. After arriving at the Adventure Society's administration building, Jason was shown through to a waiting room. There was one other occupant, a young man Jason estimated to be in his mid to late teens. He had the usual olive skin and dark hair of the local population, at least the human part of it. The young man was handsome, tall, and broad-shouldered. If that wasn't bad enough, there was a puppy in his lap, receiving a scratch on the tummy. "G'day, mate," Jason said, sitting down next to him. "I like your dog." "His name is Stash," the young man said. "Mine is Humphrey. Humphrey Keller." "Jason Asano," Jason said, shaking Humphrey's offered hand. "Nice to meet you, Humphrey. Stash is an unusual name."
I wonder what some of your favorite parts are, because you say Bill's like, I don't know. There's some sections of the story where I'm just like, oh, this shit is like dragging. It kind of feels like a big like side quest almost, you know. It really feels like a RPG type of story, because like you might be just doing things where it's not really that important. It's not progressing the story. But then again, you got other things where it's like, oh, you're progressing the story, you're getting more of the lore, you get more of, you know, like the world building as far as like how the world works and what exactly Jason is connected with as far as like all the different things that's going on with him. So, I mean, I like it though. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on it or anything like that. Like I like it. Like I like the story. Jason is the main part of the story that makes the story good. Like him and the challenges that he faces and stuff like that, that's what makes the story actually good. But everybody else is just kind of like, I don't know, everybody else is just kind of like, they're cool, they're all right. There's nobody that really like sticks out when I'm just like, yeah, this person's a dope ass character, because like everything revolves around Jason. So it's just like there's not really a whole lot of time for like specific characters to really shine that much, because it's just like everything goes back to Jason. So I don't know. I just wish there was like some more better side characters. Jason's cool, but I just wish there was better side characters. But what are you saying? The picture goes well. It's Jason's strength, but yeah, same attitude. I'm gonna keep playing it, but I got questions about Jason, because I swear to God, like this dude kind of like switches up super quick when he gets into the magic world. But let me keep on playing though, because this is where he meets Humphrey. Fuck! I just fucked up. No, I just fucked up. I lost where I was at. Or was that 50? I was at 40 something, I think.
"How did you..." "Wait, he actually is?" Jason burst out laughing, then reached over to scratch the puppy, Jason said, shaking Humphrey's offered hand on care of the local population, at least the human. According to Rufus, they were all small-time affairs that took more from their members than they offered, but still occupied impressive chunks of real estate. One was the Adventure Society, and the other was an organization called the Magic Society. Jason knew Farah was a member, but only had a vague idea of what they did. From what he could gather, they were something between a magic university and a magic utility company. Judging by size and centrality, the Forge Society and the Alchemist Association were clearly second to the Adventure and Magic Societies, but still occupied impressive chunks of real estate. Other organizations in the district ranged from occupying large buildings to being clustered into one space with other groups. Some were trade organizations, while others were adventuring guilds, private organizations of adventurers banded together for varying purposes. Rufus had warned Jason against joining any of the local adventuring guilds. According to Rufus, they were all small-time affairs that took more from their members than they offered, although Jason wasn't entirely convinced. He'd learned enough about Rufus's background to realize Rufus looked down from a very great height. After arriving at the Adventure Society's administration building, Jason was shown through to a waiting room. There was one other occupant, a young man Jason estimated to be in his mid to late teens. He had the usual olive skin and dark hair of the local population, at least the human part of it. The young man was handsome, tall, and broad-shouldered. If that wasn't bad enough, there was a puppy in his lap, receiving a scratch on the tummy. "G'day, mate," Jason said, sitting down next to him.
"G'day, mate.
"I like your dog." "His name is Stash," the young man said. "Mine is Humphrey. Humphrey Keller." Jason Asano, Jason said, shaking Humphrey's offered hand. Nice to meet you, Humphrey. Stash is an unusual name. It's short for Velitrax-a-Stash, Humphrey said. He likes Stash, though.
Velitrax-a-Stash? Velitrax-a-Stash?
What is he, a shape-changed dragon or something? Humphrey's eyes went wide. How did you... Wait, he actually is? Jason burst out laughing, then reached over to scratch the puppy's tummy. Who's a good little dragon? You are. Yes, you are. Good boy. The puppy transformed into a canary, flying out of Humphrey's lap to settle on his head, where it twittered away merrily. That's impressive, Jason said.
Crazy.
I take it he's still a baby dragon? Yes, Humphrey said. Our mothers arranged him becoming my familiar,
about Call of
or
Duty?
me becoming his person, depending on how you look at it.
I never
Your
read
mom
any,
knows dragons,
any Call
Jason
of
said.
Duty.
I guess mine does too, although it's more of a metaphor. Great Aunt Margaret doesn't literally breathe fire. Humphrey laughed. You're here to be assessed for the Adventure Society, I take it. Yeah, I did all the paperwork yesterday, Jason said. Any idea of what to expect? They'll just check to make sure you don't have any restricted abilities. There'll be an official from the Adventure Society, of course, but they're only there to oversee things. The actual checking will be done by a priest from the Church of Knowledge. Don't try to slip anything past them, because there isn't any point. Because a god's involved? Exactly. Then there'll be someone from the Magic Society to record your essences. They'll imply you have to let them record all your individual abilities. But you actually don't. I'm told that the trick is to let them know that you know you don't have to, and then do it anyway. Getting on the good side of the Magic Society is always a good idea. Thanks for the advice. If you've awakened any of your racial gifts, though, keep those to yourself, Humphrey advised. They're very big on those at the Magic Society, and you can trade the details in exchange for favors down the line. Jason recalled Farah telling him that humans all had dormant racial gifts that awakened unique powers based on their essences. He assumed the same advice would hold true for his outworlder abilities. More so, if anything. Good to know, Jason said. Much appreciated, mate. I hope you don't mind me saying, Humphrey said, but your manner of speech is a little unusual. Are you using a translation power? I am, Jason said. I'm not local. I just arrived in town yesterday. Where do you hail from, originally? Humphrey asked. Australia. Never heard of it, Humphrey said. Best not to tell Mother or she'll harangue my geography tutor. Does everyone there shave their eyebrows? I didn't shave them, Jason said. I lost them. How do you lose your eyebrows? It's been an odd couple of weeks. A door opened and the canary on Humphrey's head morphed back into a puppy, its front paws dangling over his forehead. Humphrey lifted it down as a man entered the room. He was wearing what Jason had come to recognize as local business attire, quite different from the equivalent in his own world. The local fashions all went for loose, hanging designs that were more practical for the hot climate. Young Master Geller, the man said to Humphrey, not so much glancing at Jason. This is, of course, a formality for you, but the formalities must be observed. I'm just another adventurer, Humphrey said, getting to his feet. I only expect the same treatment you would give anyone. Of course, the man lied, transparently. This way, please. Left alone in the waiting room, Jason absently tapped his feet. I need to do some clothes shopping, he said to himself. All his current outfits had been looted, and most of them hadn't traveled well. Rufus dresses nicely, he mused. Maybe he knows a place. Humphrey wasn't gone long before coming back with Stash, still a puppy, tucked under one arm. Humphrey looked rather disconcerted, and was a full shade redder than when he left. You all right? The priest, Humphrey said, breathlessly. She was a priestess. Pretty? Jason guessed. Oh, God, yes, Humphrey said. I'm sure I made an idiot of myself. You don't have to worry, Jason said, scratching Stash behind the ear. You've got this little guy. She did seem to like him. Of course she did.
Yep.
I didn't know what to say. I'm sure it was fine. I didn't even get her name. No worries, Jason said, slapping Humphrey on the shoulder. I'll get her name. You hang about in the lobby for a few minutes and we'll grab an early lunch. Sound good? You'd do that for me? Mate, I'm going in there anyway. It's not exactly out of my way. Jason?
Bro, you got the dog, man. You already got 1 foot in. Like, you might as well just play up the dog thing. Like, oh yeah, you know, I'm taking the dog out for a walk the other time. Do you want to come join me for a walk or some shit? You know, like, just easy shit.
Jason sent the still flustered Humphrey back in the direction of the main lobby. Shortly after, the man who had come for Humphrey then came out to get Jason.
Although it's not a dog, so...
Mr. Sano, he asked, all smiles. That's right. Do you know young Master Geller well? We just met here. Friendliness sank from the man's face, like a torpedo had struck it. Oh, the man said flatly. Oh, come on then. We haven't got all day. The man marched off, not bothering to look if Jason was following. Wow. Jason trailed the man through a small antechamber and then into another room where two people were waiting. The woman wore flowing robes of blue and white, with a sigil of a book sewn prominently into them. He saw what had gotten Humphrey so bothered, and she was quite pretty, although still with the rounded edges of youth. She was Humphrey's age, maybe 16 or 17, and Jason guessed Humphrey would have to move quick, or in a couple of years he'd have a small army of rivals.
Right.
Jason hadn't seen any evidence of cosmetics in this world, but he was beginning to suspect essences were taking up the slack. Except for himself and the blood priest Daryl, every essence user he'd seen ranged from moderately good-looking to stupidly attractive. The man next to the priestess was in his mid-30s, also in a robe. Where the priestess's garment draped down her body with grace and elegance, his looked like a sack held in place with a rope belt. He had stubble, not the sexy kind, and his hair was an unruly mess. Even then, Jason recognized the handsome bone structure underneath. He looked like the hapless man who gets a makeover from the love interest in Act 2. The third person was the man who led Jason in. He looked to be around 30, with the generic handsomeness of a guy who had a supporting role on a teen drama a few years ago, but didn't break out and is really bitter about going back to his catering job. So you'll be the Adventure Society guy,
The
Jason
examples
said
of
to
the
him.
comparisons.
He had the aura of a bronze ranker, although not as strong as Rufus, Gary, and Farah. They were all near the top end of bronze, where this one felt more like Anissa, who had only recently moved past Iron Rank. And you must be the priestess, he greeted the young woman. Jason Asano. Lovely to meet you. May I have your name, or do I just call you your worship, or something? The last priestess I met was a bit of a stickler. She did like to keep things formal, but mostly she just didn't like me. She shook Jason's hand with a laugh. Jason mused over a handshake being common across worlds, when it wasn't even universal to his own. My name is Gabrielle Pelham, she said, and I'm just an acolyte, not a full priestess. You can call me Gabrielle. Is it all right just to have an acolyte? Jason asked. What if I'm really good at hiding how evil I am? It is unusual, Gabrielle said, but my lady directed me specifically to be here today.
Uh-oh.
Your lady? The goddess Knowledge. Is that her actual name? Knowledge? I suppose it would be weird if she was called Beryl or something, especially if your name was Beryl. It'd make church service confusing, although I imagine quite flattering as well. He turned to the last person as the other three looked at him strangely. You must be from the Magic Society, Jason said. Not sure what they do yet, but they seem very important, so well done there. Jason Asano, nice to meet you, mate. I'm Russell, the man said, warily shaking Jason's hand. You don't know what the Magic Society does? I'm not a local, Jason said. He noted that the priestess, Gabrielle, was holding what looked like a crystal ball, while Russell had a clipboard. So how do we do this then? Jason asked. She waves the thing at me and you write down what she sees? That's more or less the process, Russell said. Great, Jason said. Fair warning, my essences might come across as a bit sinister, but they weren't on the restricted list. Not when I checked, anyway. You don't know what the Magic Society does, Russell said, but you know enough to check the restricted list. It's been an odd couple of weeks, Jason said. I'm picking things up as I go. Can we please get started? The man from the Adventure Society asked impatiently. Yes, sorry, Gabrielle said. She held up the crystal orb in front of Jason. She frowned at it, giving it a small shake. Miss Pelham? Russell prompted. It seems Mr. Asano is impervious to the aura reader, Gabrielle said. Just call me Jason. Don't worry, I'm not evil. I'll cop to naughty, but that's as far as it goes. Of course, that's what an evil guy would say, isn't it? I'm not sure what anyone would say, Gabrielle told him. I think you might be a rather unusual man. No, Jason said. Common as muck, me. That I believe, the Adventure Society official said. Gabrielle tilted her head, as if distractedly listening to something. After we're done here, Russell said to Jason, could I convince you to discuss the power that shields you from the aura reader? Got lunch plans, sorry. Sorry, Gabrielle said, refocusing on the group. The essences were dark, blood, sin, and doom. The other two turned to look at Jason. What? He asked. I said I'm not evil, although that could be part of my cunning ruse. Still, not on the restricted list, yeah? It's not like I can make zombies or something. Kind of played out where I come from, zombies. Same with vampires. Not as many werewolves, but they haven't been done well in a while. Probably need the moon essence if I was going to make werewolves, though. My friend Rufus has the moon essence, but he's more of the swordsman type. Would you please stop talking for about 5 seconds? The Adventure Society official said.
Shit.
Sorry about that. Whatever your name is, I didn't catch it. Is this your only job, or do you do catering on the side? What? Shut up. Russell, record this idiot's essencer so we can get him out of here. Just a moment, Russell said. He was looking over a blue and white marble tablet, of a kind Jason had seen before. Farah had checked an identical one when they were looking up Jason's essences. Here we are, Russell said. Dark, blood, sin, and doom. Affliction specialist, no restriction. You're all good to go, Mr. Asano. Thanks, mate. Very well, the official said, writing on his own clipboard. You're cleared for field testing. Should you successfully complete field testing, you will be allowed to take up membership with the Adventure Society with all privileges and responsibilities that entails. Field testing takes place at the start of every month, and you can sign up at the administration desk. There is the matter of registering your individual essence abilities, Russell said. I'm going to give that one a miss. Sorry, mate, Jason said. I would, but I have a friend waiting outside. Lovely to meet you, Russell. Gabrielle? He turned to the official. Guy? How did you know my name was Guy? The official asked. Seriously? I'm on a roll today. Bye all. Jason sauntered out of the room.
Crazy as hell.
What an unusual man, Russell said. I thought he was fun, Gabrielle said. I thought he was on drugs, Guy said. The other two looked at him, then nodded. That would make sense, Russell said. Will that be a problem for his membership? Gabrielle asked. No, Guy said.
No.
If we banned that kind of thing, we'd have to kick out half the alchemists. Chapter 39.
All right, I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna stop here at 39. Well, I'm on chapter 39. Gotta remember this so that way when I start again tomorrow, we can start from where I just left off. But I think an hour is pretty good for right now. I'll continue more of this tomorrow. But yeah, stay tuned to the next video. Should be tomorrow or very, very soon. Chapter 39 is where we're gonna move from. So check you guys out in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.